4.25 starts off with a nice resumptive relative. In other words, like we're resuming where we left off with like this. What does this quote refer to? It's like this thing which. So, which, when Caesar animad vertided it, or when Caesar animad vertided this, something about the naves longas. We get a nice little relative clause, quorum et species erat this, et. And when you have an erat, your verb is not at the end of your relative clause, right? So we're looking for structures that help us find the end of it. There's also a comma here that's helpful, but if we didn't have it, species was, and we know it's two things, right? Because we got et species was this, was dative and then a comparative, and species is probably the subject, and their motus also comparative. So it's going to be subject was comparative adjective and subject comparative adjective, and that's how we know we're at the end of our relative clause. So something about these naves longas, blah blah blah. Paulum remo veri, infinitive, ablative separation, and remis incitari, and ad latus apertum hostium constitui. New kind of and, atque, fundi saetis tormentis hostes propelli, infinitive, and submovere, infinitive, use it. Okay, and I'm like, hostes, they were accusative, so they're the object of something, but I already had an object up here. And so there are two different kinds of objects of this verb use it at the end. So when Caesar animad vertided, he usited the naves longas, whose species was inusitatior to the barbaris, and whose motus was expeditior ad usum. So he ordered those naves longas to be paulum remo verid from the honorarius naubus, and to be incitarid remis, and to be constituted at the latus apertum of the hostium. New kind of and from there, right, he ordered the hostes to be propelled with fundis and sagatis and tormentis and submoverid inde, right? So he ordered two different kinds of things, two different kinds of ands, separating all of those infinitives that he ordered to happen. Quaeres, which thing, magno usui dative, nostris dative, fuit. So two different datives, that should stand out to me. Like I got this noun in the dative case, and this noun in the dative case, singular and plural, so I know they're two different datives. It's a double dative, form of sum plus two datives. Which thing was, dative of purpose, was of great use, dative of reference to our guys. For, et genitive ablative, et genitive ablative, et ablative, genitive, ooh, mixed it up. Per moti participle, so that participle is probably going with all of those genitive ablatives, and it says it's a passive participle, so it needs some ablatives. And so this whole thing was a participial phrase describing our subject, the barbari. They've been our subject a couple times now. For the barbarians, having been per motied by the figura navium and the motu remorum and the inusitato genere tormentorum, what did those barbari do? They constituerunted, and what else did they do? They paulum modo pedem retulerunted. Literally brought their feet back a little bit. So we can say retreated, or like backed up, moved back for pedem retulerunt. Atque, and nostris militibus cuntantibus, our militibus is cuntantibusing. Could be ablative, could be an ablative absolute, right? Could be dative, because they're people, right? So they might be dative for some reason. But we'll just keep both of those things in mind. Could be an ablative absolute, could be a dative. Keep reading. Cuntam maxime, propter altitudinem maris, prepositional phrase. Qui, the 10th legionis, aquilam gerebat. Oops, what happened? Oh, that's what happened. Lost some of my markings. Qui, this qui, ending my relative clause here with gerebat, did not have a singular antecedent, so this is another resumptive relative. It's like he who, or like the guy who gerebat the aquilum decimi legionis. As a participial phrase describing him. And then a ut clause, so separate, right? Probably a purpose clause since I didn't have a T word. And then the thing that this guy does. So this guy is the subject of our whole sentence, even though he's only expressed inside the relative clause. Meaning, looking back, this is definitely an ablative absolute, right? With our guys, with our soldiers, cunctantibusing, maxime, on account of the altitudinem maris. The guy who gere bat the aquilum decimi legionis, having obte status the deos, and actually we find out since this means like having, like called to witness, but I think we can find maybe a better definition. Having implored, that's good. Having implored the gods, making this an indirect command. Kind of, or a purpose clause, could be an indirect command of purpose, that the subject, eo res, that the thing, verb, would turn out feliciter, dative here, for the legioni. Okay, so he's asking that this would happen. And then we get our famous thing. He says, de silite, right, and the quote's going to have its own grammar, right? De silite milites, ooh, right? It's an imperative verb. De silite milites, and this nisi clause, right? Nisi, unless, subject and verb, right? You want to do what? To protere the aquilum, this is dative, to the hostibus. Right? Ego, I, certe, meum rei publicae aquae imperatori, this is dative, to the dative and the dative, but meum goes with officium, and that is the direct object of praestitero. I certainly will have praestiteroed meum officium to the dative and to the dative. End quote. End grammar. Hoc cum magna voce dixicit, cum clause, when he had dixicited hoc magna voce, or voce magna, what did he do? Verb. He proicated se ex navi, and what else did he do? In hostes aquilum fere he coipited to fere the aquilum in hostes. Then nostri, our guys, cohortatid, participle describing them, participial phrase really, cohortatid inter se, negative purpose clause, lest a de decus be lest tantum de decus be admitterettered, right? So that tantum de decus wouldn't be admitterettered. What did our guys do, right? Unaversi ex navi de siluerunt, main clause, right? The main clause was our guys. Unaversi ex navi de siluerunt, and the participial phrase describing them too. Cohortatid inter se. Unaversi ex navi de siluerunt, so that this wouldn't happen, right? Negative purpose clause. Hos item ex proximis primi naubus cum conspexissent. Interesting. What is going on here? Primi is the subject. Of this cum clause, when the first guys conspexissented saw these guys from the proximis navibus, or maybe the first guys, when they caught sight of these guys from the nearest ships, having followed, they approping qua verunt, they drew near to the hostibus. That's what's going on. We'll talk about that sentence in class too. We only read to here, I believe, in class.